It's been 45 years since Apollo 9 splashdown. Jim McDivitt, Dave Scott, and Rusty Schweickart launched on March 3, 1969, on what might be the most important and arguably least celebrated mission of the lunar landing program. And it was the first mission on which NASA had to plan for a really awful contingency. Apollo 9's primary objective was to test the lunar module in Earth orbit, an objective that incorporated a host of firsts for the program. This mission would be the first time a crew would separate into two vehicles on a mission, running through the basic phases of a lunar landing as part of the lunar module checkout. As part of this test, the spacecraft would have to fly more than 300 miles apart, which meant they would also have to rendezvous and dock, something NASA had never done with two manned vehicles. And the maneuver was vital. The astronauts all had to get back inside the command module since it was the only spacecraft equipped to pass safely through the Earth's atmosphere. So what if the spacecraft couldn't reconnect? It was possible for the astronauts in the lunar module to re-enter the command module by spacewalk, but what if they couldn't get close enough to spacewalk to safety? This was the worst-case scenario NASA had thought about and trained its astronauts for. If, for any reason, Dave Scott, as the command module pilot, was unable to recover his crewmates from the lunar module, procedures called for him to abandon them in orbit and return home alone. Aside from a devastating return to Earth, this was a difficult contingency plan that would have Scott perform the jobs of three men at the same time. McDivitt's role as commander, Schweickart as systems engineer, and his own as navigator. It would be a terribly challenging end to a terrible mission. Thankfully, this wasn't a contingency NASA had to implement. After one tense moment when the spacecraft were separated and Scott, alone in the command module, lost sight of the lunar module, the spacecraft performed a perfect rendezvous and docking. The crew splashed down safely on March 13, 1969. Apollo 9 happened in space. Unfortunately, NASA's contingency plan did not happen in space. If there are any topics you would like to know more about, leave a comment below.